told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the
One Central African Time. Hello, and a very warm welcome to The Upside. My name is Nompumelelo Ngubeni, and I am with Tebogo Lekhuleni. Hello, Tebogo Lekhuleni.
Hello, madam. How are you doing?
Are you well?
I'm fantastic. Have you noticed something different?
Yes, you're not wearing a cap today. You are wearing a beanie instead.
Yes.
I've
been banned from wearing my
but
caps.
you replaced it with something else on your head.
Tomorrow's going to be a cowboy hat. We're not allowed to wear caps. I'm very pedantic about these things. You must cap, no caps, 100% like it. But cowboy hat, I can do that.
Because that wasn't stipulated. Who banned you from wearing caps? Who banned you?
I can't for protection of jobs. We shall not mention names. Anyway, how are you doing today?
I am very well. I'm actually quite tired, but very well.
Tired for what? Did you not rest?
No, I don't think I rested. Yeah, but I
tell you who's rested though. Ancestors.
Ancestors have been resting. When are
time.
you considered an ancestor? Like a year after passing? 2? Is there?
Is it not immediately?
It's immediately.
No. What do you mean? It's not immediately
sure
when we've buried you now, right? Is it not after that we've buried you?
Ancestor is anyone who's passed.
Oh my goodness! Because what else do you describe it? What's the definition of an ancestor? Let's find that actually, right?
Yeah, I want to know a definition of an ancestor. Because anyone who's passed.
You passed. You are no longer.
And then you're an ancestor.
You're an ancestor.
I thought ancestors come with some kind of a level of responsibility. You don't just get to die and be considered. Isn't it a bit of an accolade to be considered an ancestor?
Well, I think everyone will then be an ancestor because you, at some point, if you believe that on the other side, afterlife, you're protecting and providing information
and that's
for,
the responsibility
and everyone is linked
I am.
But everyone is linked to someone.
I'm pretty sure there are people who are chilling in the afterlife. Just like in real life, you were given a talent and you hid it, you buried it, whatever.
Wow.
There are people who are like, I'm straight up chilling in this life here.
Well, we're going to be talking about Ancestor Day, which is today, the 8th of May. We'll unpack it, especially with Castle Stout. They've got is it a campaign that they every single year?
Every year for the past, I believe, 4 years.
They've had Ancestor Day celebration. Then we also unpack the power of street photography in shaping African corporate identity. Specifically looking at the difference between street photography as we've known it back in the digital versus traditional.
We don't even do digital photography. I mean, I think we've moved up now to like AI. You literally no longer need to kind of take pictures. You can use your old pictures, reinvent them. So this sector is really changing, and I'm excited to have that conversation.
Super impressed that when you go to the street, you're now able to have someone take a picture and then send it to you immediately.
You no longer need to wash what did they call the camera roll?
The film. Back then it was the film. You had to wait.
Listen,
get in a red room.
We'd love to hear from you throughout the show. Check out Tebogo and his reimagined hat gear. He says he is going to rock up in a cowboy hat tomorrow. If you want to see us both, do check out our live stream. It is at Channel Africa 1 on YouTube, and all are over our social media platforms, including Instagram, X, TikTok, Facebook. Facebook is at Channel Africa without the numeric 1. It is 11 minutes after 1 Central African Time.
Pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform, it's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite a billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform, it's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite a billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform, it's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite a billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform, it's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that...
The Asha with so beautiful. And what is beautiful is this day. It is really warm and sunny out in South Africa. Let us know what the weather is looking like in your neck of the woods. It's +27 63 406 9126. And also add to our conversation, perhaps you have some idea of what makes an ancestor. Before we get into our conversation, Tebogo and I, there was of the opinion that anyone who's passed on is an ancestor.
Yes.
Yeah.
You disagree?
I beg to differ.
Ancestor.
I think that it must come with a level of responsibility. Any title, in fact, is given to you because of something. We're human beings by virtue of having made it here, but
fair enough.
There are different categories and rankings.
We asked the question, right, on the, shall we call it on the webs, on the social webs, not social, the World Wide Webs. And we asked, what is an ancestor? An ancestor is someone in your family line who lived before you, usually a direct relative, such as a parent, grandparent, great-grandparent, and so on. They are the people from whom you are descended. Is that a more apt definition of an ancestor than my everyone is an ancestor?
No, I'm still not convinced, because that's just saying anyone who comes before you.
Yes.
And that is, remind me in English, a dictionary meaning was a what? And then there would be a lived meaning. There'd be different categories of meanings.
It carries on. It says, in many African cultures and spiritual practices, ancestors are more than just past family members. They are revered as guiding spirits who continue to influence the lives of the living. We
are getting somewhere. That's more like it.
Honoring them through rituals, storytelling, and different practices is seen as a way to maintain a connection with heritage, identity, and protection.
All right. We are going to be delving further into ancestry, its purpose, and a very interesting conversation around the veneration of those who have passed in the context of professionalism. So in the professional space, what is allowed and what would not be allowed. But it is 20 minutes after 1 Central African time. Let's head on over to a break. When we come back, we'll have this conversation in detail.
Speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is
22
a
minutes
story.
past 1 p.m. Central African Time. Ancestor Day. Ancestors Day. A living legacy. That's the conversation we are having right now. Today we pause not just to remember, but to honor. They had names. They lived. It's Ancestors Day in South Africa, a powerful reminder that modern identity is deeply rooted in traditional memory. Now in its fourth year and championed by Castle Milk Stout alongside Contralesa, this year's observance challenges us to reconnect with ancestral wisdom in a world that often forgets. As policies like the City of Tshwane's Ukutwasa recognition gain traction, we ask, what does true cultural affirmation look like in 2025? And to join us in this conversation is cultural custodian and Contralesa Secretary General Zolani Mkiva. Zolani, thank you so much for your time and welcome to The Upside.
Thank you very much, my brother. Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to the listeners of Channel Africa. And thank you for having me, and happy Ancestors Day to all of you.
Happy Ancestors Day to you too. So we were having a debate just before this conversation asking, what does it actually mean to be an ancestor? Zolani, maybe you can paint a picture for us.
Well, ancestors are our forefathers and foremothers, those who were there long before we even conceived. So they are our great-great-great-grandparents who actually structured and built our families, mainstreamed the values and the norms by which we live, but also impacted upon us to give leadership from the family level to community level and society at large. So ancestors are the guiding light to our daily doings, especially the positive deeds that we're expected to do. They are also there to give us blessings in terms of what we are doing. And as you know it, we carry their bone, we carry their blood. We also represent their hopes, fears, and dreams. So everything that we ought to be doing ought to be inspired by that lineage, which dates back from those ancestors. So the ancestors may be your great-grandfather, but all the way back to the forefathers, as I said. Those are our ancestors, unlike the definition that you had during the colonial order, where when you speak about the ancestor, people refer to them as demons. It can be, because I heard you when you're conversing. We are related to our ancestors by blood,
yes,
but we're also related to them spiritually. As we live today with our souls and the spirit that we carry, it actually dates back from them, from the time when they lived. So there's continuity that propels us from time to time to intercede with them. We can't turn our back from where we come from, because we will never have an appreciation of where we are and what we ought to do going forward. So the trajectory that we are pursuing for the kind of future that we envisage is informed by where we come from. All the African wisdoms, indigenous knowledge systems were actually developed and enhanced and enriched by our ancestors. Everything that we're doing today, we are rehashing some of the things that they had done. Basically, even the policy texture that we are calling for in the present day. It's
Zolani, something
that was time ago.
Yeah. I like that you touching on the policy aspect, because in a time where the traditional ancestry practices has been criticized a lot for being bogus. I think it is important for members of the public to have some kind of measure of what is authentic, what is in keeping with the dated practices as well. So tell us a little bit about Tshwane's implementation of the Ukutwasa policy and how you see institutional recognition such as this for ancestral practices influencing public perception.
Yeah, I like that question. It's very relevant. You know, one of the reasons why we came up with this Ancestors Day was to liberate the African voice from a point of view of mainstreaming spirituality. So what we have seen happening in Tshwane is a very positive, progressive step in the right direction to decolonize, the public policy trajectory of the country. Because as it were right now, the policy texture of post-colonial South Africa still remains very much Eurocentric and Anglican. We ought to take into account that we are a people with a culture, we are a people with a design of living, which is very Afrocentric, and therefore, as part of mainstreaming our Africanity, we must do exactly what they have done in the aspect of traditional healing as well as Ukutwasa in general, because it is part and parcel of a historical, wisdom of how we process issues that were related to medicine, healing, as well as health in general. So we like it. We salute that municipality, and it's a very good thing to do. It's a good practice that we must follow, and we must build on it in all other sectors of society. And I think in order for us to have the best formula, which could be a winning method for our country going forward, is to tap into the African wisdom from a point of view of policy planning and policy implementation. If we do that, we will be very much efficient because we won't be mimicking anyone. And it's very easy to do what is connected to who you are as a person from a cultural point.
28 minutes past 1 p.m. Central African Time. We are in conversation with Zolani Mkiva, the cultural custodian and Contralesa's Secretary General. And we'll continue this conversation a bit later. Okay. Zolani has to make sure that we celebrate Ancestors Day in its full. Zolani, thank you so much for your time this afternoon and for shining light on this topic. For those who were not familiar with the topic itself, have a better understanding, and especially with the work that you are doing at Contralesa. We thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
The pleasure is all mine, Kamago.
The voice there of Zolani Mkiva, as I said earlier, cultural custodian and Contralesa Secretary General, in honor of Ancestors Day in South Africa, the 8th of May. We got a proper definition now from him, saying what an ancestor is. Happy with that one?
No. All I'm saying, and I'm going to say this to the living, is that for me to consider you an ancestor, and we can argue about whether I believe in it or not, you have to have some level of responsibility. You can't just be, in your waking life, you weren't the most useful, and then now in your afterlife, you're not going to be the most useful, and you're still venerated and all. Sorry.
Can I just say that the youth, born in 2010, they call us ancestors who were born in the 90s. So let's define that properly. We need to have a proper conversation with them. Anyway, Figile Lingwati has your latest in sport.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Let's start off with handball. Rwanda under-18 girls team came from 4 goals behind to hold Uganda 41-41 in the opening match of the IHF Trophy Zone 5 Championship at the Old Kampala Sports Arena. Uganda started the game strongly and the home crowd pushed them to lead 28-18 at halftime. The halftime team talk saw coach Aphrodis Sindaigaya change tactics, and his girls started to put pressure on the home side. They turned the results around as the pair ended the normal time tied 41-all. Rwanda under-18 are pooled in Group B alongside Burundi and Uganda, while Group A includes Ethiopia, Somalia, Tanzania, and Kenya. Defending champions Senegal are on the brink of elimination and must win against the Democratic Republic of Congo today to have any chance of progressing to the quarterfinals at the Total Energies CAF Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations. DR Congo, meanwhile, need only a draw to advance. This will be the first ever meeting between the two nations at the finals. Senegal are facing Central African opposition for the 4th time. They previously defeated Cameroon in 2017 and edged Congo 4-3 in the 2015 encounter. In their current campaign, they drew 1-1 with DRC in the opening match. DRC are also encountering West African opponents for the fourth time in the tournament's history. They remain winless in their previous 3 such encounters. Defending champions Senegal have failed to win either of their opening 2 group matches for the first time since 2015, when they lost to Nigeria and drew with Cote d'Ivoire. If they fail to win this match, Senegal will go winless in the group stage for the 3rd time, previously in 1993 and 1995. Paris Saint-Germain coach Luis Enrique insisted his team deserved their place in the Champions League final and were determined to go on and lift the trophy after winning their last 4 tie against Arsenal. Goals at the side of halftime by Fabian Ruiz and Achraf Hakimi put the French champions out of sight in the tie before Bukayo Saka pulled one back for Arsenal. However, the host needed goalkeeper Gianluigi Donnarumma to make several vital saves, and Arsenal coach Mikel Arteta claimed his team had been better over the long 2 leg. Enrique says the goal when he arrived at the club was to make the final of the Champions League.
It means a lot. Everybody is dreaming with getting a Champions League final, and our first goal when we arrived to Paris was to making history, and we are in the right path.
Cricket news: Proteas women are looking to turn things around against Sri Lanka in their match on Friday. The Proteas women have struggled in the 50-over try series against India and Sri Lanka in their opening matches, so far without the services of always reliable all-rounder Marizanne Kapp. Cricket South Africa CSA says Kapp is rested as she continues a conditioning block in preparation for the subsequent tours and the World Cup in India. The Proteas have lost both their opening 2 matches, first a 15-run loss to India and then a demoralizing 5-wicket loss to Sri Lanka. Let's end with golf news. Having won the Masters to complete a career Grand Slam and end a 10-year major win drought, Rory McIlroy is ready to move on starting at this week's PGA Trist Championship. 36-year-old from Northern Ireland has won the event 4 times at Quail Hollow, but this year the event has been moved to Philadelphia Cricket Club because next week's PGA Championship, the year's second major event, is being played there. McIlroy, who celebrated a birthday last Sunday, played alongside Ireland's Shane Lowry at Pear's event 2 weeks ago, but this marks his solo PGA return as well as his last tune-up for the PGA Championship. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Join Tebogo and Nompumelelo on the upside, where optimism meets opportunity.
35 minutes past 1 p.m. Central African Time. Let's find out how the markets are moving with our business update with Thabiso Lehuku.
A living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa.
Thanks to Tebogo and good afternoon. A Fitch ratings agency says Gabon's recent swap of regional market bonds and bills did not amount to a distressed debt exchange, which means that the country avoided a default. Fitch, which rates Gabon triple C, 8 notches below investment grade, says the exercise trims the 2025 repayments by the equivalent of 1.4% of gross domestic product this year and 0.8% in 2026. The Fitch report says that the limited scale of its exchange relative to Gabon's financing needs means it was not designed to avert a traditional payment default. CEO of Barrick Mining, Mark Bristow, says that the Canadian company is spending $15 million a month to keep its Mali mine running and doesn't know where Mali's government is keeping the gold. In an interview about the long-running conflict with authorities in the West African nation, Bristow said the government there had walked back on an agreement to settle a tax dispute 3 times and called the jailing of Barrick employees in the country a human rights violation. Sisi Sekgalo reports.
Barrick and Mali's government have been locked in a dispute for more than 6 months over the Loulo-Goungoto complex, Barrick's largest mine in Mali. In addition to arresting the 4 Barrick employees, authorities confiscated around 3 metric tons of gold in January following accusations that Barrick was not in compliance with its tax obligations, prompting the miner to shut down the mine. Based on the current gold price, the value of the confiscated gold is around $318 million.
The G20 member states are expected to hold their second meeting today in South Africa's Northwest Province on the Empowerment of Women Working Group. This is ahead of the G20 presidency that South Africa will assume from the 1st of December. The meeting will hear feedback on care economy, paid and unpaid and care work, financial inclusion of women and gender-based violence and femicide. The World Bank stressed that access to finance must be coupled with the skills development. Senior Knowledge Officer Felicia Siergritst explains.
Evidence also shows that access to finance interventions is not enough to improve business growth for women entrepreneurs, but they must be combined with access to skills interventions, such as training, as well as access to markets interventions.
Guinea has initiated a process to revoke Emirates Global Aluminium's mining license in the West African nation. Emirates Global Aluminium, equally owned by Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund Mubadala and Dubai Sovereign Wealth Fund, the investment corporation of Dubai, operates one of the largest bauxite mines in Guinea through its Guinea Aluminium Corporation subsidiary. The company says it continues to work hard to find a resolution with the government to resume their operations. The United States and Britain are expected to announce a deal to lower tariffs on some goods on Thursday, the first such agreement since U.S. President Donald Trump imposed levies on countries around the world. A British government spokesperson says Prime Minister Keir Starmer will give an update on U.S.-UK trade talks later today. The two sides are working to agree lower tariff quotas on steel and autos, 2 sectors that were hit by 25% U.S. levies. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 606. Botswana 13 pula 47. Kenya 128 shilling 403, and Zambia 29 kwacha 95. The BRICS countries, Brazil, the dollar there 5 real 72. Russia 80 rubles 94. India 84 rupees 70. China 7 yuan 22, and in South Africa the dollar is trading at 18 rand 23. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 88 to the euro. Commodities markets: gold at $3,341, platinum at $972 per ounce, Brent crude oil $61.39 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tebisolo Hoko.
More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and
Indeed,
Portuguese.
it is the upside with Tebogo Lekhuleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. In fact, we do have Zolane Mkiva back on the line to speak to us about Ancestors Day. And Zolane is a Secretary General of Contralesa, that is the Congress of Traditional Leaders of South Africa. Zolane, thank you very much for making time and accommodating us in this segment. Look, not everybody, I mean, we live in South Africa where there is a diversity in belief system, right? And that often can bring a little bit of conflict where in shared spaces, such as the workplace, for instance, where one's beliefs and practices may encroach on that of another. So let's talk about how the practice of isintu in the workplace may in fact encroach on another's beliefs, but also offend, perhaps, in the case where a traditional leader has prescribed certain medicines and said, cleanse your space, for instance, the space in which you work in. Is Contralesa there to iron out those kind of things? What is the message from yourselves in regards to shared spaces?
Well, the philosophy of Ubuntu and the whole principle around it, it's very inclusive and very embracive of one another, because you are one because of others. So for us, we preach tolerance. And when we make this clarion call around mainstreaming African spirituality in the public spaces, we are doing something that is meant to actually unite us as a people. Because all of us, first and foremost, as Africans, we are born spiritual beings. We are born as Africans. And then we choose, when we become adults, to subscribe or to follow a particular belief system. But the baseline of who we are is what has been relegated the background and into the margins during the colonial times. We are saying then, let's bring it into the center stage, because actually our strength is anchored in us embracing our African spirituality. So it is not done, to exclude anybody. Instead, it does the opposite. It is done to include everyone, to say we are all the children of humanity. We all belong to motherland, and therefore we have to have tolerance and respect for one another. It can be in an African country that you would say that we will be encroaching to others. Well, if you live in Rome, sometimes you are expected to do as the Romans do. We are Africans. Those who like us and those who have come to join us here and want to be part and parcel of our society, they are welcome to do so. But they must also respect the fact that in the first instance, we are Africans, and our cultural outlook is that of Africanity. I mean, you know that historically, one of the things that has made us victims of coloniality is our spirit of embracing and welcoming. When the uninvited traders, Viking traders, as well as colonialists, when they came to our shores,
all right.
But we welcome them.
We are losing you a little bit there. If you could just continue your train of thought.
Well, I am saying that historically, we are very embracing and welcoming to a people. It is an issue of color and creed. Welcoming. All it needs to be done is to have respect for one another and respect for one another's beliefs.
All right, Zolani, we're going to just send you back to the producer to get you on a better line. But what I heard Zolani saying there is that truly the practice of traditional practices are meant to be inclusive and not exclusionary. And that, quite frankly, if you are in Africa and you don't believe in African practices, maybe this is not the place for you. And that in itself is exclusionary. But we're going to get Zolani back on the line to just further expound on the point that he was making there. Let us know in the meantime what you make of it, traditional practices in the workplace or in shared spaces, wherever you may be. +27 63 406 9126. And what you deem to be an ancestor?
What you deem to be an ancestor And how did you celebrate, or how are you celebrating Ancestors Day? How would you go about celebrating
No, I wouldn't.
Ancestors Day?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't?
Mm-mm.
No
You?
recognition, honor,
No.
those who were before us,
No.
write their names down, call them out loud.
Is that what you would do?
No.
Oh, what? How would you celebrate Ancestors Day?
No. Personally, no, I would not celebrate. Just based on my belief system, I would not celebrate Ancestors Day. But again, like Zolani was mentioning there, it's important that we embrace and acknowledge people's belief systems and respect them. Let's be inclusive and let's be open-minded about certain things. Just because they practice it in a way that you are not familiar doesn't mean that it is wrong.
Or scary.
Or scary.
Or
Or voodoo.
Right? There are
It's
so
not voodoo.
many conceptions, misconceptions. They may be or just
Conceptions.
perceptions that people have around the veneration of those who have passed, rightly or wrongly. And I suppose it is Contralesser's responsibility to dispel those. And days such as these are important for just that. We are speaking Ancestors Day and the celebration of it. The theme this year is... They had names and they lived. And really the focus is to, I suppose, keep them in memory somehow.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a beautiful thing.
And perhaps, just the other day, was it on Tuesday, where we spoke to Nompumelelo, who wrote a book around her mother's will to live.
The right
Things like that.
The right to live a full life.
Those are indeed ways of keeping the names and the memories of our ancestors' lives, right? Alive.
Personally, I have nothing against that. I think it's a beautiful thing. If your great-grandfather or grandfather did something amazing, maybe they were the first to break out of, poverty, or maybe they were the first to get us in the right trajectory to where we are right now. Nothing wrong with honoring them. Grandfather did this and he did that and he did this, and there's nothing wrong with honoring that memory, just to remind everyone of where we came from that brought us to where we are right now. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a beautiful thing, to retain those stories, just like many stories that in religious texts, even you'd read the Bible, those are stories. People's lineages, what they did, what they conquered, and we continuously keep sharing and remembering those. You can do the same thing for your own family and honor the people who were before you. Nothing wrong with
that. Let's take a break, and as we try to get hold of Zolani Mkiva, and it is 10 minutes before 2 Central African time.
These, the languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture.
Danka Mami Criolla. I'm probably butchering that. I will step out to ask our French language service about the pronunciation of Danka, because it's spelled with a little squiggle on the C.
On the D-A?
N-C squiggle.
N-C
A.
Squiggle A. It's not Dansha.
Dansha mi Criolla. Well, you know, whatever sounds... I hate to butcher words. We'll find out. We'll find out from Duolingo. Are you on Duolingo?
I'm not on Duolingo. Okay. Not yet, anyway.
You're not studying any language, any foreign language.
Well, right now, we're using our
It's hardly enough. We can barely call that studying a language.
I mean, we can greet now, which is fantastic. We can say hi, we can say how are you,
How to greet in French?
Not in French.
Until Channel Africa?
Until Channel
What
Africa.
other languages can you greet in?
Portuguese.
Oh, okay. How do you say hi in Portuguese?
Hello.
I can't have a single serious conversation with Tebogo. I can't.
I know how to say it in Chinyanja.
How do you say?
Moni.
Moni, okay.
Moni.
Moni.
Muribwanji is how are you? Zikomo, thank you.
Okay.
As far as I can go.
It.
You see?
Right.
You see?
We're getting somewhere.
Learning something. So yes, if you didn't know, we do broadcast in Chinyanja, French, Portuguese, Kiswahili, and of course in English on Channel Africa.
Right. I have no capacity to learn a language right now.
No capacity to learn a language.
Because if Duolingo, you need to be there every day. It's only 15 minutes, but I don't think I can commit to.
Can you do a link in French? You've been on Duolingo for quite some time.
No,
now,
I've never used Duolingo. That's what I'm saying. I have no capacity for.
Doesn't your little one use Duolingo?
She does, not me.
Aren't you there to teach her and correct her?
No.
Okay.
She'll just say, is this the pronunciation of whatever word? And I'll say, no, it doesn't sound right. Google it. That's it.
It doesn't sound right. You're not going to correct her.
No. If you've committed to something, you figure it out, okay? I'm trying to inculcate some level of independence.
Learn a new language. It'll keep your brain young.
Absolutely. What I can say is je m'appelle peu français, but I can't do a link, however, in French or any other language. Can you? Isiswati, please.
Wait, you said No, I was actually listening there.
Give us a link.
Say it again.
Into news and say Joalane Tulongwebe is going to be giving us the news in Isiswati.
Wow. Oh, sanamgela balaleli be Channel Africa.
Okay.
Lo landzelelayo livi laka Jwalani Thulo Ngwebe. Uniphathele tindzaba tenu la ku Channel Africa.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And that link was brought to you by Tebogo Lekhuleni in Isiswati. But look, wherever you're listening from, we'd love to, we're challenging you to send us a voice note.
I'm waiting for the French one, right? You need to do it.
Okay. We're going to work on it. I promise you.
No. We did the Swati. Do the English, the French quickly.
I'm challenging our listeners to give us a link in their language.
Whatever language they
Whatever language, wherever you're listening from, send us a voice note, +27 63 406 9126, and give us a link into news, into sports, business. Cool. Our various presenters, and say that, business is brought to you by Thabiso Lohoko in your language. Very cool if you want to hear your voice on radio. But right now, itintaba.
Send it through on +27 63 406 9126.
Tinzaba.
Tinzaba tiyalandzela.
All right.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Top stories. Asawa nutrition supplies expected to run out by the end of the month in South Sudan, and Russian President welcomes Chinese President Xi Jinping for talks in the Kremlin. Good afternoon. The UN's World Food Programme, WFP, and Agency for Children, UNICEF, say they expect nutrition supplies for Upper Nile State in South Sudan, which has some of the highest rates of malnutrition in the country, to run out by the end of May. Fighting along the Nile River in South Sudan has prevented humanitarian aid from reaching more than 60,000 malnourished children in the northeast of the country for almost a month. The Nile is a crucial transport artery in South Sudan because the impoverished country has few paved roads and a lot of challenging terrain, particularly during the rainy season when many roads become impassable. The agencies did not say which fighting had disrupted the route of their aid barges, but government forces have been fighting an ethnic Nuer militia known as the White Army in areas near the Nile since March. Mali's opposition parties are planning countrywide protests tomorrow. The West African country's political parties are demanding a return to constitutional order and a presidential election. The country's government has meanwhile suspended political activities across the country. Last week, a national conference of political actors recommended naming junta leader Assimi Goïta as president with a 5-year mandate. Joey Lehodi has more.
The junta said in a statement read on state TV on Wednesday that activities of political parties and other political organizations had been suspended until further notice to preserve public order. The conference also recommended the dissolution of all political parties and the tightening of conditions for the creation of new parties. In response to that announcement, a coalition of political parties held a demonstration on May 3, saying Malians were not represented in the conference. Parties were expected to gather again on Friday.
UNESCO's head of communication, Alamin Youssef, says whilst artificial intelligence is transforming the media, it also makes it easier to manipulate people and even violate basic human rights like privacy and freedom of speech. Youssef was speaking at the Southern Africa World Press Freedom Day commemoration in Johannesburg, South Africa. The day is being held to, among others, discuss some of the threats artificial intelligence poses to journalism and freedom of expression. The gathering will also see the launch of the Southern Africa State of Press Freedom Report. Youssef says the media must strive to uphold human rights standards.
The opinion is everything that the media should do should be within the human rights standards. You know, we need to take the human rights approach to everything. And degrading any human being is against international human rights law. So if there are podcasts that are belligerent, it's time that now they abide to international human rights standards.
The case of 5 men accused of the murder of South African rapper Keenan aka Forbes and Tebogo Lekhuleni has been postponed to the 12th of June. The court heard that one of the defense attorneys is currently in Eswatini representing the other 2 suspects linked to the case who are applying to appeal an extradition order to South Africa. The 5 who have already been charged appeared briefly in the Durban High Court in South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal province. Forbes and Lekhuleni, a celebrity chef, were gunned down outside a restaurant in a popular entertainment area in Durban's Florida Road in 2023. The accused face several charges, including murder, attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit murder. A charge of money laundering was also included in the indictment. NPA spokesperson in KwaZulu-Natal, Natasha Ramkansoon Kara, elaborates.
If you'll remember, in last year in August, in Manzini, the Magistrate Court had issued an order for the suspects there to be extradited to South Africa. However, they filed a notice of appeal in response to that order. The prosecuting team then believed that the notice of appeal filed by these suspects was filed out of time. So they wanted the court to consider that notice of appeal null and void. The prosecuting team then made an application to the court to have that notice of appeal considered null and void. In November, the court found that the suspects did file within time, and hence that application was dismissed. So now the prosecution team is taking that on appeal to the Supreme Court of Appeal in Eswatini for that decision to be reviewed.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has today welcomed Chinese President Xi Jinping for talks in the Kremlin. This is ahead of Russia's Victory Day parade tomorrow, where the country will commemorate the victory of the Soviet Union against Nazi Germany in 1945. Moscow hopes that these talks will enhance diplomatic relations with China as the war against Ukraine continues. Bonolo Maribe has the story.
Chinese President Xi Jinping is one of many world leaders who are currently visiting Russia to mark the 80th anniversary of the conclusion of World War II. China serves as Russia's biggest trading partner and is the largest buyer of the country's fossil fuels. This visit also comes at a time where the country is engulfed in a trade war with the United States and Russia is facing increasing pressure to reach a peace deal with regards to the current war against Ukraine.
Recapping the top story this hour, the UN's World Food Programme and Agency for Children, UNICEF, say they expect nutrition supplies for Upper Nile State in South Sudan, which has some of the highest rates of malnutrition in the country, to run out by the end of May. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulongwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective. For Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story. A living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent. African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa.
8 minutes past 2 p.m. Central African Time. Welcome to The Upside. If you've just joined us, second hour of the show. It's a hot Thursday afternoon. Are we officially in winter in South Africa? Southern Africa.
After the 18th.
After the 18th.
Yeah. So today is 10 more days to go.
10 more days to go.
And then we will be in winter.
In winter, anyway. It's still nice and lovely outside. You can wear a t-shirt outside, which is pretty cool. How's your Thursday going? One more day, then it's the weekend. I know for a lot of people, we mentioned earlier or during previous shows that for a lot of people, this is their first full week after quite some time of public holidays.
Yeah.
Right? So we're hoping that you're finishing strong and coming up in this hour of The Upside, we're going to have What Caught Your Eye. All right? I will start off with that, and you're more than welcome to share with us what caught your eye on our WhatsApp line. 2763-406-9126. Don't forget to follow on social media, stream us live so you can see our studio, see our lovely faces at Channel Africa 1 on X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and at Channel Africa on Facebook. Use the hashtag The Upside. Staying on that number, that WhatsApp line, earlier we were asking you to please send us
a voice note
of you giving us a link to the news, a link to sport, or a link to business in your native language, in your home language, or any other languages that you speak. Right? If you feel confident enough, because I was asking the question on social media, and someone is saying, I speak Sepedi, Setswana, Sesotho, isiZulu, Xhosa, Tshivenda, and
any
English.
African language.
Who's that? Zerl_01. Shout out to you. So send us a link, a radio link in any of those languages of you linking to sports or news, sports, and business. The WhatsApp line is +27 63 406 9126. It's time for you to hear your voice all over the world. Your voice will be all over the world. All right?
Quite literally.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
So send through your voice note. The WhatsApp line, I'm going to repeat it again. +27 63 406 9126.
We have a voice note. I've just received a voice note from Zimbabwe. We're going to be playing it in this hour, and I think it is linking to the top of the hour news. So stay tuned for that one. We need more. All right. But for now, it is 11 minutes after 2 Central African Time. Let's get some music when we come back. What caught your eye?
Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every...
Still, and before that one was Msaki, with a song that just carries so much meaning. Time does not stand still, basically, is what she was saying. Ubomi abumanga. And she is with a Sanel musician on that one.
Beautiful song.
Our double play bringing us to
Beautiful.
22
Beautiful
minutes.
music.
After 2 Central. Oh, life doesn't stand still, apparently. Not time doesn't stand still. It's 23 minutes after 2 Central African time. Time for what caught your eye, Mr. Tebogo Lekhuleni?
A conflict, rather.
Oh, okay.
So there's a conflict. A lot of people may know about the conflict that exists in India, between India and Pakistan. Right? It's been there. Tensions have been brewing for the longest time. Right? And lately it seems like it went to another level.
Escalating.
Where there's now bombings and it's getting serious. One of the concerns raised by some people, and I don't know how true on the ground this actually is that when those people leave Pakistan or India and want to find a place for refuge, the likelihood is that they will want to come to South Africa, because outside of Pakistan and India, the largest population or the largest populations of Indians you'll find is in South Africa.
Durban.
In Durban, specifically. So some people are like, okay, what does this mean? If there is fightings happening in Pakistan, India...
Is it that simplistic?
Are they going to come to South Africa? And
are we their only option?
And when they do come, are they going to do it properly, legally? You know, how's Home Affairs going to handle it? Is Home Affairs watching the situation and making sure that we're not having an influx of people coming through without the correct documentations because they want to leave that place, which is a bit hostile at the moment?
I suppose the easiest way to do it would be through asylum, right? An application for asylum, because that is a conflict zone where they are living. So both. I suppose no one has answers to that until we see an influx at the borders of these two nationalities coming through or trying to come through to the continent, and whether it be specifically South Africa, we'll have to see. My main question when I saw that, and you know, it's great that you were concerned about the humanitarian aspect of it.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the impact on cricket.
The impact on cricket?
These are the two countries that
why impact on cricket?
Leading
in
cricket.
Why would it affect it though?
How?
Let me tell you why I asked that. Let me tell you why I asked that, right? It's because yesterday I was watching the Indian Premier League and the Pakistani Super League.
Where were they playing?
in their respective countries. The Pakistani Super League playing in Pakistan and the Indian Premier League playing as if nothing is happening around
that,
them.
you see, and that is why there are such great dichotomies within countries when there is conflict between the privileged and non-privileged, right? Where's the conflict happening? Where in India, where in Pakistan, who is the most affected? Why is it that sporting codes, and I mean sporting codes, the bodies that control sporting codes often call for this, that conflict in those countries, in countries where teams come from, should not affect the teams. And I think that's right. And maybe that's why life is going on. Maybe that's why you could watch the Premiership.
It would explain to an extent why the Pakistani, because the conversation right now is that India has bombed or sent missiles to Pakistan. What would explain would be the lack of attendance at the Pakistani Super League. It was almost empty, the stands. So the cricket players maybe not affected, but those who, the citizens were like, actually, no. We've got more serious things to worry about than to go to a cricket game. Anyway, that's what caught my eye. Ma'am, get into yours. What caught your eye?
What caught my eye is the impact of alienating your support base. Okay. And this stems from one South African celebrity musician, Scott Maphuma. All right?
Oh, okay.
You're familiar with him?
Not really, but I've seen him circulating on the socials and I've heard things about him.
That he doesn't want to take pictures with his supporters or fans.
And he's been gloating about that.
Yeah, so Scott Maphuma went onto social media and was emphatic about his refusal to take pictures with his fan base, saying that he doesn't like taking pictures, don't ask him for them, you don't make him, being his support base. You have not, he just is not interested in you beyond you enjoying his music, right? And somehow there was a bit of a caucus among South Africans or his fan base. I don't know if they started a WhatsApp group.
Okay.
Because then Scott Maphuma performed at the Cotton Fest. And I don't know how word spread prior to his performance, but all the performances prior to his, there was fanfare, there was noise, there was engagement from the audience. Then Scott went onto stage and there was radio silence.
Oh.
Okay. He has a collaboration with another musician. Musician went on. There was a roar for this musician. Scott's verse comes on. There's like silence.
Oh.
I don't know how they orchestrated this. It was like incredible. But what that has led him to do now is take onto the very social media where he said he doesn't need his support base to apologize, and subsequently all other musicians have joined in to encourage his fans to accept Scott Maphuma's apology. I mean, one such person is Black Coffee that has endorsed his apology. I know that Maphorisa also was featured in one of his videos saying, "Hey, Mkoleleni, please forgive him." What do you make of that? Of celebrities, in whatever form, saying that I don't need you. I don't want to take pictures with you. Are they within their rights?
Listen, at the end of the day, it is a human being. They are human beings, celebrities, right? And they have every right to feel overwhelmed sometimes and maybe not feel, they feel under the weather. They don't want to take their pictures. They're feeling a bit shy in the moment, or they just had a very long day and they don't want to have that interaction.
But this was a principle. It doesn't matter his mood.
So fair enough that you are a human being like that. Yeah. But when you consistently display to people that you don't need them and that you're fine, and then to also disregard the fact that they, to an extent, they played a role to get you to where you are. Their support, them showing up, them buying tickets, it's absolute disrespectful to them, for me personally.
I wonder now, the big question for me is, in what direction is the WhatsApp group swaying in? Are we forgiving him or not? What is the WhatsApp group saying? The very WhatsApp group that said, we're going radio silence. What is the verdict? It's 30 minutes after 2 Central African time, and Fikile Ngwati standing by with the sports news. Maybe Fikile can let us know what's happening there by India and Pakistan there. Yeah.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And we begin with football news in this hour, and it's handball. Rwanda under-18 girls team came from 4 goals behind to hold Uganda 41-all in the opening match of the IHF Trophy Zone 5 Championship at Old Kampala Sports Arena earlier this week. Uganda started the game strongly, and the home crowd pushed them to lead 22-18 at halftime. The halftime team talk show coach Aphrodis Sindaigaya changed tactics, and his girls started to put pressure on the home side. They turned the result around as the pair ended the normal time 41-all. Rwanda under-18 are pooled in Group B alongside Burundi and Uganda, while Group A includes Ethiopia, Somalia, Tanzania, and Kenya. World Football Governing Body, the premier global event for the football industry, released a comprehensive report on the state and future of African football. This revealed unprecedented commercial opportunities as the continent prepares to co-host the 2030 FIFA World Cup alongside Morocco, Spain, and Portugal. There is the digital findings, Africa 650, and it will also be infrastructure surge, where the continent requires a whole lot of amount of money to get infrastructure up and running. Women's football untapped potential despite dominating AFCON, 68 total titles. Commercial development remains nascent. And on to rugby news. It's the road to the United Rugby Championship quarterfinals. Go straight through Welsh opposition for all 4 South African franchises this weekend and also next weekend. On Friday evening, the Sharks must beat the Ospreys in Durban to secure a home quarterfinal. On Saturday, the Bulls play Cardiff in Pretoria, and the Stormers host the Dragons, while on Sunday, the Lions need to beat the Scarlets to stay alive in the tournament. The Bulls recorded 3 wins out of 4 matches played on their tour of Europe. They then got a week break to regroup and recuperate ahead of final push to the best possible finish for the URC playoffs. 2 Welsh teams await them in the final 2 rounds. Bulls loose forward Marco van Staden says the break after those 2 statements victories was just what the doctor ordered.
I think we had a very good tour, a very hard tour. So I think, two big games, Munster and Glasgow, 2 weeks in a row. So I think the break was actually very good for us, just resting the bodies a bit. Because another big game coming up against Cardiff, and then playoffs starting soon. So no, I think the break suited us well.
After the Bulls, the Sharks are the next best placed South Africans in 4th place on the log. Like the Bulls, they scored 2 huge victories on their tour to the Northern Hemisphere against Edinburgh and Ulster. They gearing up for the prospect of the Ospreys, the team from Swansea, who are not unfamiliar with pulling off shock wins. The prospect means that coach John Plumtree must make sure his Shark side does not drop their intensity.
These guys are a genuine threat, they can beat anyone on their day. And as we know, we can probably lose to anyone on our day, So we're at home in front of our own fans. It's good to be home. But we've also got our own little challenges around our own game.
And the 2-time world heavyweight boxing champion Anthony Joshua has confirmed plans to return to the ring in December following a period of recovery after undergoing elbow surgery this month. This has been out of action since suffering a devastating 5th-round knockout against Daniel Dubois at Wembley in September last year. Speaking to the media in Mexico, Joshua revealed that he was prioritizing physical rehabilitation before resuming full training later this year. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa, it's time. Shift every milestone and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent.
Stories of what's happening business-wise on the continent.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Nompumelelo, and good afternoon. A Fitch ratings agency says Gabon's recent swap of regional market bonds and bills did not amount to a distressed debt exchange, which means that the country avoided a default. Fitch, which rates Gabon a CCC, 8 notches below investment grade, says the exercise trims the 2025 repayments by the equivalent of 1.4% of gross domestic product this year and 0.8% in 2026. The Fitch report says that the limited scale of the exchange relative to Gabon's financing needs means it was not designed to avert a traditional payment default. The CEO of Barrick Mining, Mark Bristow, says that the Canadian company is spending $15 million a month to keep its Mali mine running and doesn't know where Mali's government is keeping the gold. In an interview about the long-running conflict with authorities in the West African nation, Bristow said the government there had walked back on an agreement to settle a tax dispute 3 times and called the jailing of Barrick employees in the country a human rights violation. Sisi Sekhalo reports.
Barrick and Mali's government have been locked in a dispute for more than 6 months over the Loulo-Goungoto complex, Barrick's largest mine in Mali. In addition to arresting the 4 Barrick employees, authorities confiscated around 3 metric tons of gold in January following accusations that Barrick was not in compliance with its tax obligations, prompting the miner to shut down the mine. Based on the current gold price, the value of the confiscated gold is around $318 million.
The G20 member states are expected to hold their second meeting today in South Africa's Northwest Province on the Empowerment of Women Working Group. This is ahead of the G20 presidency that South Africa will assume from the 1st of December. The meeting will hear feedback on care economy, paid and unpaid and care work, financial inclusion of women and gender-based violence and femicide. The World Bank stressed that access to finance must be coupled with skills development. Senior knowledge Felicia Surgrist elaborates.
Evidence also shows that access to finance interventions is not enough to improve business growth for women entrepreneurs, but they must be combined with access to skills interventions, such as training, as well as access to markets interventions.
Guinea has initiated a process to revoke Emirates Global Aluminium's mining license in the West African nation. Emirates Global Aluminium, equally owned by Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund Mubadala and Dubai Sovereign Wealth Fund, the Investment Corporation of Dubai, operates one of the largest bauxite mines in Guinea through its Guinea Aluminium Corporation subsidiary. The company says it continues to work hard to find a resolution with the government to resume their operations. Oil prices rose over 1%, buoyed by hopes of a breakthrough in looming trade talks between the United States and China, the world's 2 largest oil consumers. Brent futures were up 86 US cents or 1.4% at $61.98 US a barrel, while US West Texas Intermediate crude rose 97 cents or around 1.7% to $59.3 US a barrel. The market has almost stabilized at slightly above $61 a barrel. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 606. Botswana 13 pula 47. Kenya 128 shilling for 03, and Zambia 29 kwacha 95. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar there will cost you 5 real 72. Russia 80 rubles 94. India 84 rupees 70. China 71 22. And in South Africa, the dollar will cost you 18 rand 23. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 88 to the euro. A look at commodities markets now. Gold is trading at $3,341 and platinum at $972 per ounce. Brent crude oil is at $61.39 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Thabiso Lohoko.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa in business on Channel Africa.
An investigation by South Africa's non-profit organization Open Secrets has found that telecoms company MTN has played a role in shutting down the internet during elections and wars in Sudan, Cameroon, Iran, Afghanistan and Uganda, thus enabling governments to silence the opposition.
Interestingly, this isn't just unique to MTN. I think the report also looks at Vodacom DRC as being a proponent of one of these violations, particularly in shutting down the internet during the elections in 2018 and 2019. Autocratic regimes are able to utilize the licenses that they have with these telecom companies, basically to, suppress political dissent. And the result is that many people are left without connectivity. And not only does this affect people's ability to communicate with their loved ones and access vital emergency services, but also at a very basic level of access to information.
The Open Secrets investigator, Lu Vorno Ntuli.
Africa in business on Channel Africa. Weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Central African Time. Connecting Africa to the world. The Upside with Nompumelelo Ngubeni and Tebogo Lekhuleni. Bringing you Africa's brightest ideas and untold stories.
All right, it is 43 minutes after 2 Central African Time. Tebogo, you often be in front of the camera, right, in your various the various work that you do, or behind the mic, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And
yes.
What that comes with is some kind of creative direction, or rather a brief.
Yes.
Right?
For the
so
most
client
part,
would
yes.
tell you, would give you a brief about, all right, this is how we want you to pose, this is what we want you to wear, this is for it's for this and that campaign.
Of course.
Now, because we're speaking photography, if it is a personal project, I'm wondering, and this is the conversation that we're having, to what extent is the photographer giving the direction of the vision, and me, the subject, giving the direction for the vision?
There needs to be a balance, doesn't there?
Is it?
There needs to be a balance, because the photographer is looking at things from a technical point of view. They will have had experience, color grading, different sceneries, different lighting, time of day. You may not be privy to such information.
Yeah.
You just know how you want it to look like.
Right.
But how it gets executed is then the photographer's job to then direct you and say, I hear your vision. Let's try it like this. There needs to be a collaboration. There needs to be a collaboration. There needs to be a balance struck between the two. For me, anyway, because otherwise, if you have too much of the technical, the photographer saying what needs to be done, you might not be happy with how it turns out. So your voice needs to be heard. Their voice needs to be heard from a technical point of view and from an expertise point of view.
A balancing act.
Balancing
All right.
needs to happen.
I mean, let's hear from an expert in the field. We are joined by photographer Mazwi Punja. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. I mean, you are quite well versed in terms of corporate, taking pictures for the corporate. Let us know a little bit about your background, how you got into photography as well.
Well, how I got into it was a hobby at first when I was 18, and then it just grew from there. And for the past 10 years, I've just been doing photography. And that's how I ended up doing corporates and events, weddings, etc.
Formal training that was involved in this? Was this self-taught? Did you go to YouTube? How did you go about it?
Actually, I had friends who knew photography, and they gave me some direction here and there. And then from there, it just became self-taught, because the most part of photography is you have to practice. So it's not just, reading a book or just watching a YouTube video. It's actually getting out there and taking pictures, messing up, getting things right, and then messing up again. So it's always a back and forth just to get more understanding of your equipment, lighting, your environment, how to move subjects around for better lighting. So it's just experience.
Yeah. I mean, photography is storytelling, right? For the most part. How do you prefer to work? Is it a corporate giving you a brief about these are the kind of pictures that we want? Is it a collaboration like Tebogo alluded to earlier, or in your field? How does it work?
Yes, you get a brief, and in the brief they'll have some reference images of what they would ideally like you to get. You have leeway of, terms of lighting, your editing, how things can look in the final results. And that also depends on the time of day and where you're shooting and how your lighting is going to be set up. But they do give you a general idea of what they want. And then during the day, you'd usually have someone there, like a marketing manager, someone part of their team that would be there to help direct you also and tell you where they want you to be, when they want you to be there, to capture certain moments. So there is a lot of back and forth between myself and their team.
Sure.
And for those who are trying to get into the space, Mosi, and they want to balance, you mentioned beautifully there that you get a brief and that you do have leeway. But for a lot of photographers, they have worked so hard in creating an identity and a style in which they do their photography. And now you have a client that somewhat says, what you are doing I like, but I want something completely different. How much of your voice do you then end up saying to them, listen, I know you have a vision, but my style and my skill set and where I perform best at is in keeping with the tone and the style in which I do it. How much of your voice do you then contribute to this conversation without there being an imbalance, if you will?
Well, it depends on who your client is at that point, because if they have a very set idea, then you can stick to it. But if you do have leeway, then there will be more of a thing of, we like your style, you can add your style in. In that case, then you're good. If not, then you just have to learn how to diversify, how to change up your style when you need to do it. Otherwise, you're going to always get certain clients that will just come down on you and they won't like your final results. And then at that point, you just have to take that.
Yeah. Tell us about some of the challenges associated. I mean, you've just alluded to, sometimes a client not understanding that their vision is inexecutable. But what are some of the other challenges associated to the work that you do?
Lighting, to be honest, and time of day.
Lighting, that's a big one.
Yeah, that's the biggest one out of everything is just lighting. If you go into a dark room and you didn't bring the right equipment, you're kind of screwed at that point. You can't really get anything done. And if you don't have the right equipment again and then everything is too bright, you can't even fix that in post. And it's also just constantly remembering that what I'm doing now, I have to be able to edit it. So an image that's too dark, you can't bring that back. An image that's too bright, you can't bring that back. So you end up with unusable images for everything.
So
it's just understanding your lighting and where you're shooting and as much as you can of your location.
Has the digital space, the cameras that we have, the equipment, have they improved your work drastically now? Because back in the days, you used to go into a little red room and have to put your film in a little solution so that you can get the pictures. The digital space that we live in now allows you to get that work out a lot quicker. And if you do not have a basic understanding of color grading, and like you said, you are self-taught, this can become a daunting task. But talk to us about the advancements in equipment that helps you do your job a lot more efficiently.
That's actually a very nice thing, is that our digital cameras nowadays have such great ways to manipulate light, no matter the situation you're in. So even if you were to just pick up a camera and start shooting at first, if you don't shoot it on manual, it should come out good. And that's just thanks to the camera's capabilities in itself. Now, when you want to get more specific and get into the raw aspect of your image and just get better color grading and styling in that image, that's when you're going to start learning the manual aspect. And in that sense, it's a bit more difficult because, again, you're just playing a lot with your light. But again, you have the digital side where it's not like a red room where you're exposing an image to light for an X amount of time to get an X amount of black and white onto your picture paper. Nowadays, you have Adobe Photoshop, and your Lightroom where you can actually bring back some details, even if you did shoot a little too bright. So it does help in the sense of being able to make a mistake and then fix it later on. So our equipment and our technology, at least today, is extremely great.
I mean, in terms of the soft skills, Muzwe, you would require some level of finesse, right? In communicating with your client, just to get a median of their vision and what is practical from your side. Tell us about the kind of skills that you've had to hone over time in order to be able to work with client, to explain what is possible, what isn't, and actually finally execute what is possible.
Well, for events, it's just making sure that you're constantly looking around, because things are always happening around you, even if you're not looking at it. Right? So you just have to keep looking around, and that's a difficult one for me personally, because after that shot, well, there's an entire thing happening right behind you. Another one would be being quick to change your, for example, your ISO or your depth of field, your f-stop. That would also be a very difficult one to get attuned to, because your camera settings have to just be set proper all the time. And then, other than that, you should be good, just running around, finding good shots, finding where lighting is better for people. Different people, different skin tones have different ways of reacting to light, so finding where's the best place to take certain pictures of certain people, stuff like that. So once you get a hang of that, I think everything should be smoother for anyone.
I think that's more technical. So, are you doing your own negotiations between a client? Are you going? All right. Okay. So you are mostly communicating with the client.
Yes. But throughout the whole shoot, that's why, if I'm taking a picture here, my client should be somewhere around me, and then I'll just be able to say, look, I can't take this picture, I can't get this angle, I can't get this shot, these things happened. And then if they understand, then I try to compensate in another shot or with other images in the final results.
Muzi, I have a question concerning taking portraits of people. One of my biggest challenges personally is that I've been told time and time again that I take the most horrible pictures of people. I don't know how to get their best sides. Give us some tips on how to take the perfect picture of a human being, a person. It's one thing to take of nature, it's one thing to take of landscapes. But when you're taking a picture, a portrait of a human being, what is it that you're looking for to ensure that we take the perfect picture every single time that they will also be proud of?
So you have the spacing first and foremost. Is how much space are you leaving above their heads? So you don't want to leave too much space, and you don't want to leave too little. Otherwise, that will make the person either look very small or very tall. Secondly would be how they position their chins, how they hold their heads up. If they're constantly looking down, then drop your camera lower to make them look like they're looking directly at the camera. If they're always looking up, bring your camera a bit higher so that way they always look like they're looking at the camera, directly at the camera. And then it's just framing their shoulders within your grid so that way you don't make one side of their face look bigger than the other. So those would be my go-to tips for taking any portrait of anyone.
All right. How do people follow you on social media?
Captured by Mo. So it's captured_by Mo on Instagram.
All right. Muzwi Ponja, thank you very much for your time. He is a photographer there as Tebogo tries to implement all the tips that he's been given. I'm sure we're not going to get a single picture that is workable.
I'm sorry. Your lack of faith in me.
No, I haven't even. In fact, you've never taken a picture of me, have you? We've never done this. So but I'm also very pedantic about pictures and stuff.
That
so
I know.
Not the one to work with.
That I know. Our
As
poor
you
social media
try
person.
to get the perfect picture, we're going to take a bit of a break. When we come back, we are going to throw forward to the news. Teklet Sadiq, all the way from Ethiopia. I mean, speaking about Ethiopia, we go to Zimbabwe now. We asked you earlier on to send us voice notes linking to the sports news and top of the hour news. And we have one voice note from Zimbabwe by Xolisani.
Kanaka ini ndinonzi Xolisani Ncube ndiri kuno kuZimbabwe tasangane ipanguwa idzo now zamunopiwa na Tulo Zwalane Mwepe ndotenda.
SABC News, the African perspective.
Top stories: Asawa Nigerian nutrition supplies expected to run out by the end of the month in South Sudan, and India and Pakistan point fingers at each other. Good afternoon. The UN's World Food Programme, or WFP, an agency for children, UNICEF, say they expect nutrition supplies for Upper Nile State in South Sudan, which has some of the highest rates of malnutrition in the country, to run out by the end of the month. Fighting along the Nile River in South Sudan has prevented humanitarian aid from reaching more than 60,000 malnourished children in the northeast of the country for almost a month. The Nile is a crucial transport artery in South Sudan because the impoverished country has a few paved roads and a lot of challenging terrain, particularly during the rainy season when many roads become impassable. The agencies did not say which fighting had disrupted the route of the aid barges, but government forces have been fighting an ethnic Nuer militia known as the White Army in areas near the Nile since March. UNESCO's head of communication, Al-Amin Yusuf, says whilst artificial intelligence is transforming the media, it also makes it easier to manipulate people and even violate basic human rights like privacy and freedom of speech. Yusuf was speaking at the Southern Africa World Press Freedom Day commemoration in Johannesburg, South Africa. The day is being held to, among others, discuss some of the threats artificial intelligence poses to journalism and freedom of expression. The gathering will also see the launch of the Southern Africa State of Press Freedom Report. Yusuf says the media must strive to uphold human rights standards.
The opinion is everything that the media should do should be within the human rights standards. You know, we need to take the human rights approach to everything. And degrading any human being is against international human rights law. So if there are podcasts that are belligerent, it's time that now they abide to international human rights standards.
More than 650 suspects have been arrested for serious and violent crimes in South Africa in the last quarter of the 2024-2025 financial year. This was revealed by the Serious Crimes Investigations Unit, the Hawks in Pretoria. Hawks head Godfrey Libea says some of the suspects were apprehended for fraud, corruption, police killings and cash and transit robberies. He says during the arrest they recovered almost 400 firearms and dismantled illegal drug laboratories with drugs with a street value of over $1.2 million.
Of the 656 suspects, the Serious Organized Crime Investigation secured 364, the Serious Commercial Crime Investigation secured 220, while the Serious Corruption Investigation secured 72 suspects before court. Most of the arrests were effected in Gauteng province with 139, followed by the Northwest province with 99, KwaZulu-Natal province with 88, and the Eastern Cape and Free State provinces with 73 suspects each.
The case of 5 men accused of the murder of South African rapper Keenan aka Forbes and his friend Tebogo Lekhuleni has been postponed to the 12th of June. The court heard that one of the defense attorneys is currently in Eswatini representing the other two suspects linked to the case who are applying to appeal an extradition order to South Africa. The 5 who have already been charged appeared briefly in the Durban High Court in South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal province. Forbes and Lekhuleni, a celebrity chef, were gunned down down outside a restaurant in a popular entertainment area in Durban's Florida Road in 2023. The accused face several charges, including murder, attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit murder. A charge of money laundering was also included in the indictment. NPA spokesperson in KwaZulu-Natal, Natasha Ramkasoon Kara, elaborates.
If you'll remember, in last year in August, in Manzini, the Magistrate Court had issued an order for the suspects there to be extradited to South Africa. However, they filed a notice of appeal in response to that order. The prosecuting team then believed that the notice of appeal filed by these suspects was filed out of time. So they wanted the court to consider that notice of appeal null and void. The prosecuting team then made an application to the court to have that notice of appeal considered null and void. In November, the court found that the suspects did file within time, and hence that application was dismissed. So now the prosecution team is taking that on appeal to the Supreme Court of Appeal in Eswatini for that decision to be reviewed.
India and Pakistan have accused each other of using drones and missiles to target their respective military installations. The Pakistani military says it has shot down 25 drones from India that violated its airspace, including over the cities of Lahore and Karachi. A military spokesperson, Lieutenant General Ahmed Sharif Chaudhry, has described this as another act of aggression.
Last night, India has undertaken yet another blatant military act of aggression against Pakistan by sending Harap drones at multiple locations. Pakistan Armed Forces, being in a high state of alert and vigilance, have so far neutralized 12 Harap drones at various locations.
Recapping the top story this hour, the UN's World Food Programme and Agency for Children, UNICEF, say they expect nutrition supplies for Upper Nile State in South Sudan, which has some of the highest rates of malnutrition in the country, to run out by the end of May. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Mwebe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
It is 8 minutes after 3 Central African time, third and final hour of The Upside. It's Nompumelelo Ngubeni and Tebogo Lekhuleni. Thank you very much for your voice notes. Please keep them coming. Keep them coming in all manner of languages linking to our business news, our sports news, top of the hour news, +27 63 406 9126. Coming up in this hour, we're talking fashion.
Have you seen one of those stores that end up overstocking?
No.
Or you haven't seen stores that overstock?
That overstock? No.
They have over...
How would I know that they overstocked? Through their merchandising, like the store looks cramped?
Yeah.
No.
They have too much.
No.
What about luxury wear?
They would never overstock.
They would never overstock? You used to work in luxury retail once upon a time, in a former life.
In my former life?
Are you going to tell us some secrets of what you guys do behind the scenes that we don't know about?
No, it looks like a mess.
What, back there?
Usually in stockrooms, yeah. That's all I can say.
Listen, in a world drowning in fashion waste, one South African startup is styling a solution. Faro? I'm blackenizing it.
Yeah.
It's probably Pharaoh.
Most likely. I think it would be Pharaoh.
Faro the sustainability meets a luxury with this one. And they're using AI.
They have a very interesting concept, yeah.
Actually, let's let them explain it a bit better.
And that's
right?
what we'll be talking. We'll be talking to them about how it is that they use data-driven information to disperse their clothing throughout.
Yeah, to rescue those unsold fashion items.
And sustainability is the name of the game in any industry these days, right? Because we do not want to live in a world where summer is now winter. Just the seasons are upside down.
Do you really think we have global warming?
You don't think so? Oh, Tebogo.
Well,
I try to drum some...
I'm just asking a question.
Okay.
Do you actually believe
I do.
Global
You think
warming?
it's an agenda by the G?
Well,
but Tami Ngubeni did allude to this yesterday.
Here's my thing, right? I've always said, if you believe in a being or a source that creates things that can fix themselves, like the body can heal itself under the right conditions, I'd like to think that the earth can also heal itself under the right conditions. So to utterly say that global warming is outright going to destroy the whole is for me is not make sure.
All I'm saying is let's do what we can to stop it in its tracks.
Fair enough. Prevention is always the best, right? It's 11 minutes past 3 p.m. Central African time. Some music coming your way before we have our conversation about sustainability in luxury fashion with Faro.
And protest Dr. Tadini Masaya, who's the Secretary for the Information and Media of the United Zimbabwe Alliance, an opposition party founded in March 2022.
Every Zimbabwean is entitled to expressing themselves, whether they are ZANU-PF or they belong to any other political party or they do not. So what Geza and those that believed in his code did is within their rights. However, we also fully acknowledge that it is an internal fight, and as UZA, we did not participate in that internal fight. We are not going to be used as pawns as what happened in 2017 to usher in a different face for ZANU-PF. It does not matter who is the face of ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF is going to remain the same.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. No matter where you are, Channel Africa is always with you.
Low-key, all of them done they notice. I'm not joking, all my guys, them know me. Since 06, I've been writing this story. I know be OG, but if you ask them know me. I know they blow trees, only lonely me lonely. Music chose me, just know this and know peace. I dey low key, but I'm never lonely. Sexy ladies, come wine for me slowly. I love when I sing and wake me believer. I be get the boy, I be singer. Yeah, nobody will be over. The Lord that they go far. Who's a go for the labor? not joking. All my guys, them know me. Since '06, I've been writing this story. I know be OG, but if you ask them know me.
And they did a thing there with Bandana featuring Asake. And that one bringing us to 16 minutes after 3 Central African time as we get into conversations around fashion and sustainability, something that is highlighted very often every time we talk about fashion, especially in a time of fast fashion, right?
Absolutely. Meet Pharaoh. Hope I'm saying it properly, right? Meet Pharaoh, where sustainability meets luxury and AI meets retail reinvention. From Zara to Levi's, they rescue unsold fashion and give it a second life. Affordability and stylishness is at the forefront with its AI engine Pharaoh AI IQ predicting trends and moving stock with digital precision. This is no ordinary retail story. It's about redefining African fashion, empowering shoppers and creating jobs. Co-founder Amber Penny joins us to unpack how Pharaoh is dressing the future. Amber, thank you so much for your time and welcome to The Upside.
Hi guys, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Hey.
Penny, please, Amber, please explain to us in human terms Pharaoh IQ and why it is such a game changer in the fashion retail space.
Yes, absolutely. In human terms, noted. So yeah, guys, thanks for having me. Lovely to be here. I suppose to put it plainly, the system essentially uses AI and predictive analytics. It learns from historical sales data and essentially forecasts future trends so that we can personalize sales. So what that means is that the technology makes sure that we are getting the optimal stock in front of the right customer. So obviously that means our kind of stock sell-through the business is optimized. I mean, stock movement across the board is optimized. And I think usually what happens in traditional retail businesses is that this is a very kind of human-oriented part of the business, the allocations and the planning.
Yeah.
Obviously, the kind of Pharaoh IQ does that for us and makes sure that the right product gets in front of the right customer.
All right, it's 20 minutes after 3 Central African time. We're in conversation with Amber Penny, co-founder and COO of Pharaoh. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
If it's news and current affairs, leading opinions, and thought leaders that get your groove, this is your home, The Upside.
20 minutes after 3 Central African time. Amber, all right, so tell us about how it is that you work. Do you work with different brands that for which you then generate or kind of get the algorithm for and then distribute this the clothing given the trends of the data that you have generated?
Yeah, so basically what happens is we speak directly to brands. So we essentially will speak to kind of Zara, G-Star, Levi's, you name it. And we essentially speak to them around their overrun stock. So obviously the stock that they haven't been able to sell previously, that would usually be the stock that would end up in the landfills. We then buy that stock from them at a low cost and obviously pass that saving on to the end customer. So that's why our prices are able to be what they are in the stores. Yeah. So essentially it's a branded outlet. So the way that it works is we receive the manifest from the brand. We then process that manifest literally within a couple of seconds using the technology. We then use predictive analytics to decide on the buy. We obviously kind of bring in the stock, we process it, do QC pass, fail, etc. And then it gets kind of churned through the system based on then historical sales data, which stock should then perform best in which stores. And then we essentially optimally allocate to the store locations based on what the AI is telling us to do.
To the very stores. So say you have bought the manifest from Zara, and typically high-waisted jeans would sell in Mitchell's Plain in store X. You would then kind of take that high-waisted jeans to Mitchell's Plain in store X at the Zara store. So it's not at your own store.
At our own Farrow store. Right. So we've got at the moment 6 Farrow stores, so 3 in Gauteng, 3 in Western Cape, and we set to have 16 by the end of the year.
Incredible.
With kind of goals to go globally, but even just within South Africa, probably around 1,000 stores by 2030. So we're expanding really, really at quite a rapid rate.
And Amber, what are some of the environmental and, shall we say, social wins of turning, overstock into opportunities for employment and just affordable pricing and price points for customers to buy?
Totally. So, I think there's both a social and an environmental narrative, as you're saying, and kind of our sort of values as a brand focus on both of those things. So the first thing I think to mention is that as local South Africans, we don't often get access to, firstly, distribution of some of these global brands. So some of the brands that we are distributing at the moment is Pull & Bear, Bershka, Stradivarius, Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger. So brands that have very limited distribution in South Africa. Secondly, I think even the brands that do have distribution in South Africa, majority of the South Africans can't afford them, right? So essentially what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to bring global fashion and global brands to South Africans at prices they can afford. So that's kind of the main focus for kind of us in terms of our customers. I think naturally, the way that we've set up the stores has actually been in a way that is quite a aspirational shopping experience. So instead of having a shopping experience that is, a little bit subpar, you're kind of going and you scratching through a bunch of clothes. Our store experience is really, really dignified. It's a beautiful store. The staff are trained to really, really treat every single person that walks into a Farrow store the exact same, no matter their background. It's something that we are super, super clear on as a brand is the way that we want to encourage and foster a enjoyable and dignified shopping experience for customers. So on the customer front, I would say that's our focus. Naturally, because of the nature of the inventory, the spin-off on the environmental side is that myself and my co-founders have been plugged into the global textile overstock crisis for many years now, and we've seen this issue trying to be solved again and again by brands that are companies that are either distributing in the wrong markets, that are maybe cannibalizing the full price market of the brands, so the brands get sticky as to distribution there. For us, I think we've found a really sweet spot in South Africa where we've got a customer that is super brand and status orientated, but that is also very price and value orientated. And so essentially what we are able to do is utilize this technology to take that global overrun stock direct from brands and redistribute it in a market that is not really cannibalizing the full price market to begin with. And so the perception and the reaction from brands has been outstanding. The minute we opened up those conversations, we were like, wow, okay, these brands really want to they want to work with us and distribute in South Africa, which is awesome.
So for me, that's incredible because as you were talking, I was thinking from a brand perspective, brands would much rather have their clothes in landfills, right? Just to maintain kind of the perception of high end or prestige. Because as a brand, I would also worry about who is the end user. Is this the kind of person that I'm marketing to anyway? And now here you are cheapening, and reducing prices for a clientele that is not ideal for me. So it's interesting that the brands have reacted in the way that they have. Is it because brands are becoming a little bit more conscientized to the end user's insistence on sustainability in their practices?
Yeah, I mean, I wish it was that. I'm not sure it is that. I think,
it's just profit at whatever cost.
To be honest, no. I think that there's a couple of reasons. So number one is that we have created this store environment that that feels very high end. And so when we are speaking to the brands, we're showcasing the environment in which the inventory is being sold, and it's a premium shopping experience. So the shopping experience itself doesn't make the inventory feel like we're cheapening the brand. If anything, we are presenting it in a pretty elevated way. And so for the global brands, I think a lot of the time that gives them a lot of peace of mind, where even though the price point is quite a lot lower, they are still happy with the way the inventory is being presented. It's not in a sort of scratch patch, right? So I think that's the one piece. The second piece, and I think this is probably the biggest driver of the global brands making these moves, is that legally countries are clamping down on the law around the incineration and discardment of any overrun stock. So by 2026, actually, there's talk of overrun stock being kind of incinerated or discarded as illegal in Europe. And so these brands are having to do something with the stock. They would rather sell it to us for a lower cost than donate it, because those are kind of going to become their two options. And so we kind of come in and say, we're going to buy it at a low price because we want to pass those savings on to the customer, but we will still sell it in an elevated way in a market that doesn't eat up your already existing full price market. Whereas I think, businesses like this in the UK and the US, for brands to sell their products in a market that already buys full price, their brand full price, is a tricky one, because now they are essentially cannibalizing their own markets. Whereas for us here, we are distributing it into a new market. And so I think those are a couple of the reasons why brands have been so excited.
Amber, just run us through what one can expect in your store and online as well. You'd mentioned some brands, the Zaras, the Levi's. What else can we find on your website or in store?
Yeah, so we actually are only in store at the moment. So yes. Nature of the inventory it's like a get it or regret it, like buy it now, binds type of model. So we don't actually have a lot of depth within our inventory. So for example, if you find that like beautiful Calvin Klein puffer jacket for 400 Rand in Faro, there's only going to be one of them. Right. So you need to buy it then. So it's actually an interesting shopping experience, because we've got customers who come into the store like 3-4 times a day just to see if we have new products, so that they can be the first to get it, which is super cool. But I think what you can expect at a Faro store environment is, as I mentioned, the most kind of friendly staff. I mean, our store teams are incredible. I can really kind of vouch for the guys on the ground. They're amazing. But I think from a brand and kind of category perspective, so we've got footwear, apparel, and accessories at the moment. Okay. With plans to actually expand into alternative categories like kids, potentially homeware. And I think at the moment it's those kind of main categories, both men's and women's. And then within those categories, brands wise, I mean, there's hundreds of brands, but I said, like the likes of Pull & Bear, Bershka, Stradivarius, those European brands we don't have here. But then top figure, Calvin Klein, Zara, Levi's, G-Star, what else? Steve Madden, Love Machino bags, ASOS. Array, honestly, an endless supply of brands. And and a really beautiful kind of elevated shopping experience, I think, is what you can expect.
Yeah. Amber, we have run out of time, but if you are able to, if you could just stay on the line beyond our business news so that we can nicely wrap up this conversation. I'm sure that you have nice packaging as well at the Pharaoh stores. So we just want to put you in a nice little wrapper at the end of the conversation. We are in conversation with Amber Penny, a co-founder and COO of Pharaoh stores. It is 30 minutes after 3 Central African time. Let's head on over to sports news.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
We begin with athletics and marathon. World Track and Field Investigators says South America's fastest marathoner was banned for 5 years after testing positive for 3 steroids 1 month before the Paris Olympics. Daniel do Nascimento of Brazil also will miss the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics before his ban expires in July of the following year. Dos Nascimento's marathon career peaked in 2022. He clocked 2 hours, 4 minutes and 51 seconds at the Seoul Marathon, placed 8th at the World Championships in Eugene, Oregon, and led the New York Marathon for more than 20 miles until collapsing. Athletics Integrity Unit, AIU, unit record his time in Seoul qualified him for Paris Olympics, but he tested positive twice in samples given while training last July in Rio de Janeiro. The steroids metenolone and drostanolone were found in both samples, and nadrolone was found in the first one. 26-year-old Brazilian runner also competed in the Tokyo Olympics marathon, which he did not finish. Rwanda under-18 girls team came from 4 goals behind to hold Uganda 41 all in the opening match of the IHF Trophy Zone 5 Championship at Old Kampala Sports Arena. Uganda started the game strongly, and the home crowd pushed them to lead 22-18 at halftime. The halftime team talk saw coach Aphrodis Sindaigaya change tactics, and his girls started to put pressure on the home side. They turned the results around as the pair ended the normal time tied 41 all. Rwanda under-18 are pooled in Group B alongside Burundi and Uganda, while Group A includes Ethiopia, Somalia, Tanzania, and Kenya. The road to the United Rugby Championship, URC, quarterfinals goes straight through Welsh opposition for all 4 South African franchises this weekend and also next weekend. On Friday evening, the Sharks must beat the Ospreys in Durban to secure a home quarterfinal. On Saturday, the Bulls play Cardiff in Pretoria, and the Stormers host the Dragons, while on Sunday, the Lions need to beat the Scarlets to stay alive in the tournament. The Bulls recorded 3 wins out of 4 matches played on their tour of Europe. They then got a week break to regroup and recuperate ahead of the final push to the best possible finish of the URC. Marco van Staden is the Bulls loose forward. He says the break after those 2 statement victories was just what the doctor ordered.
I think we had a very good tour, a very hard tour. So I think, two big games, Munster and Glasgow, 2 weeks in a row. So I think the break was actually very good for us, just resting the bodies a bit. Because another big game coming up against Cardiff, and then playoffs starting soon. So no, I think the break suited us well.
After the Bulls, the Sharks are the next best placed South African side, beginning round 17 in 4th place on the log. And that prospect means that coach John Plumtree must make sure his Shark side does not drop their intensity.
These guys are a genuine threat, you know, they can beat anyone on their day. And as we know, we can probably lose to anyone on our day, you know. So we're at home in front of our own fans. It's good to be home. But we've also got our own little challenges around our own game.
Let's end with boxing news. The 2-time world heavyweight boxing champion Anthony Joshua has confirmed plans to return to the ring in December, following a period of recovery after undergoing elbow surgery this month. There has been out of action since suffering a devastating 5th-round knockout against Daniel Dubois at Wembley in September last year. Speaking to the media in Mexico, Joshua revealed that he was prioritizing physical rehabilitation before resuming full training later this year. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fidel Nwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Mix Vibration sur Channel Africa.
Nous allons accueillir sur ces plateaux de Mix Vibration un artiste pas comme les autres. Il est exceptionnel. Il se classe résolument dans la trajectoire des artistes qui défendent le patrimoine du folklore africain, mais aussi de la rumba. Ici, Jérémy Tchani.
En tout cas, je vous dis merci à la Channel Africa, à tout le monde qui nous suit. Dans la vie, si tu veux aller loin, il faut comprendre les temps. Il y a ceux-là qui étaient dans leur temps, mais à cause d'une mauvaise conduite, à cause des gens qui l'accompagnait, à cause de sa famille, à cause beaucoup de choses, son temps passé.
Voilà, donc il faut toujours gérer le temps. Chaque chose a son temps, dit-on. Et la couronne ne dure pas éternellement, dit-on. Donc il faut toujours gérer le temps que Dieu vous a donné sur la terre. C'est le message que Jérémy Tchani nous amène aujourd'hui sur Mix Vibration à Channel Africa.
Mix Vibration, tous les dimanches de 18h à 19h, temps universel.
This is The Upside for the best African vibes, groundbreaking content.
Moroi, zita rangu nditatenda. Kwakuya nhau dzemitambo nafikelele ngwati panhepfenyuro yedu yeChannel Africa.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
You too can be like Tatenda and intro any one of our presenters who have the updates for us. But now we head on over to business news with Thabiso Lohoko.
Thanks, Nompumelelo, and good afternoon. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced major reforms to the country's visa system. These include the implementation of recommendations from the Work Visa Review, a new electronic travel authorization system, and a points-based system aimed at attracting skilled professionals and investors. Ramaphosa was speaking at the launch of the second phase of Operation Vulindlela, a joint initiative of the Presidency and National Treasury to accelerate the implementation of structural reforms and support economic recovery.
On the visa system, we will ensure that the recommendations of the Work Visa Review are fully implemented and introduce an electronic travel authorization system to support growth in tourism, but also to support growth in those who want to come and invest in our country.
Chief Executive Officer at Smartphone, Nevo Hadis, says spaza shops in townships play a vital role and make up a significant portion of the informal trade network that accounts for 70% of staple food sales in southern Africa. However, they face serious food safety issues stemming from poor handling practices, inadequate storage, sanitation concerns, and lax regulations. Smartphone is a Cape Town-based pioneering plastic-free grocery store. Hadis comments.
So what it does is it bridges the requirement of consumers to have food that is affordable, to be able to buy in smaller quantities. Most of the quantities of food we sell will be in sizes which are smaller than are the smallest packets available from the recognized manufacturers we work with. And that allows consumers to buy just, the rice for the day or the maize for the day and keep it safe.
Somalia has signed an oil deal with Turkey. The hydrocarbon exploration and production agreement was signed against the backdrop of escalating tensions between Somalia and Ethiopia over the controversial maritime deal between Ethiopia and Somaliland. The deal signals a significant leap by Turkey's ambition in the Horn of Africa. Fitch Ratings Agency says Gabon's recent swap of regional market bonds and bills did not amount to distressed debt exchange, which means that the country avoided a default. Fitch, which rates Gabon CCC 8 notches below investment grade, says the exercise trims the 2025 repayments by the equivalent of 1.4% of gross domestic product this year and 0.8% in 2026. The Fitch report says the limited scale of the exchange relative to Gabon's financing needs means it was not designed to avert a traditional payment default. Britain and the United States are expected to announce a deal to reduce the trade tariffs later today. London has been seeking an agreement since President Donald Trump imposed sweeping import taxes on goods from almost every country last month. The BBC's Henry Zafman reports.
The agreement is likely to reduce tariffs facing British steel and cars. While technology might be a big theme, the UK has very notably not ruled out reducing the digital services tax paid by some of the US tech giants. President Trump teased this announcement in a social media post last night, declaring that he would be unveiling a major trade deal with what he called a big and highly respected country. It will be seen in Downing Street as a significant boost, diplomatically and economically.
$1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 606, Botswana 13.47, Kenya 128 shilling 403, and Zambia 29 kwacha 95. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar will cost you 5 real 72, Russia 80 rubles 94, India 84 rupees 70, China 7 yuan 22, and in South Africa, $1 is trading at 18 rand 23. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 88 to the euro. Commodities markets: gold is trading at $3,341 and platinum at $972 per ounce. Brent crude oil is at $61.39 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Thabiso Lohoko.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Join Tebogo and Nompumelelo on the upside, where optimism meets opportunity.
It is 42 minutes after 3 Central African time, and we're going to continue our conversation with the co-founder and COO of Faro, and that is Amber Penny. Thank you for being long-suffering and joining us again, Amber. Thank you very much for your time. But I was intrigued to find out, what it is that you do with your unsold stock then. I don't know if it will be giving away trade secrets as well.
Yeah, so we have got some kind of distribution channels. We actually try and support kind of some small business enterprises on the back end. So we've got some kind of wholesale channels that we essentially kind of offload our overrun stock to. However, the goal is that with our kind of AI tools and optimal stock movement through the business, that we will essentially have limited to no overrun stock at the end of the day. So this, is something that we want to try and avoid. But for now, the stock that we don't sell, we have got some kind of small business enterprises that we partner with to distribute on a wholesale level too.
Oh, nice. Amber, merging AI, fashion and affordability must have presented quite a few challenges.
Sure. That's a broad question. Yeah. I mean, look, I think it's been a challenging, but also in the same breath, I think a somewhat smooth journey where, yes, we are trying to merge, those three things, but the way that we are presenting it to customers, and I think the experience that we're bringing to customers lends itself organically in South Africa to where the demand sits. And I think that's where we've been really lucky to date, is I think our product market fit has been there from the get-go. I mean, the way we kind of launched with this higher end premium shopping experience, bringing global brands to South Africans at an affordable price. I think the brand loyalty that's built from the beginning, I think the demand has been there. And so it's been about us making sure that we get the best products to the customers and that we continuously are, growing and expanding our brand partnerships and our brand network so that we can keep building on the inventory offering. But really the demand has been there. I think the intersection was something that we noticed, but that already existed. We just needed to bring that product to the right consumer, which the uptake has been amazing.
So it's interesting again to me that your findings and what led to the interception as a result was the right product not finding the right end user, number one, and secondly at the right price point, right? I would have never thought those are the biggest impediments to certain stocks not flowing. So what, having come up with this through your AI data, what direction rather do you think that the fashion industry will be going beyond this? You mentioned that the new policy about fashion brands not wasting after 2026. Where do you think the landscape is going?
So I think the legality around waste is changing. I don't think that waste is changing. I think if anything, there's a statistic that says overstock is going to triple by 2050. Really? I think with the way that, with the rise of fast fashion and the rise of e-commerce, the way the trends are coming in and out of fashion at the speed at which they are, and it's only getting worse. I think overrun stock is only going to become a bigger issue. I think because of this, there's legality being put in place to try and circumvent that. But unfortunately, I think the kind of way the trends are going with the rise of fast fashion, it's only getting worse. And I think for us, the goal is to try and take as much of that overrun stock and redistribute it and extend the life cycle of garments so that, if the garment would have ended up in a landfill today and we can extend that life cycle by X number of years, over time, you're having an impact on the textile crisis. And I think with the number of stores we're planning to open, hopefully at scale, we can really solve that with the right technology. But yeah, unfortunately, the fashion industry it's only getting faster and it's only getting worse. Yeah.
And Amber, talk to us about the usage of social media to make people a bit more aware of Pharaoh, because you do have quite the following on social media. You must be doing something right there, and definitely noticed a gap or an opportunity to utilize these social media platforms to tell your story.
Totally. I think social media has been a huge one for us. I mean, I think what we've found is because as a brand, we are building the brand in coordination with the communities we're launching in. So as an example, a big part of our strategy is going to be opening in more kind of township outskirts areas, right? So for example, we've opened in Mitchell's Plain, we opened in Mamelodi Mall in Pretoria. So that's going to be a big part of our strategy. And so essentially understanding the way that these kind of communities are ticking, what is the main fashion influencers, what are some of the local artists we can collaborate with, and really bringing the best offering to each community, I think is super important for us. And I think we've seen massive traction in terms of doing that and a lot of loyalty doing that. I think something else is also just authenticity as a brand. I think we, from the beginning, have been exactly, what you see is what you get when customers are asking us where the stock is coming from. Everything is transparent, and we want to be as transparent as we can be. I think there's so often, kind of black boxes when it comes to the fashion industry. And so we want to be as transparent as we can be. And I think that's been a massive one with us on social media, where I think people following us feel related to the brand and they feel a part of the brand because we are continuously engaging with them and bringing them into the loop. So I think just authenticity on social media has been a massive one. Specifically, TikTok for us has often gone pretty viral. It's been awesome.
There is a big movement, Amber, right now into quiet luxury, which one would argue that would be a proponent in ensuring that people hang on to the clothes that they've bought because it's quality, it's long-lasting, it's generational, and that's really the idea of a quiet luxury. What do you make of trends such as those? Do you think that they could aid in the backtracking, the slowing down of fast fashion and like the trendy, edgy direction in which you say fashion is going?
Definitely. I think my concern with that would be that it is a small, often quite privileged percentage of the population that can have that kind of outlook, right? In terms of, cool, I can afford to buy something of amazing quality for a high price that's going to last me for 10 years. Whereas I think the reality of it is that a lot of the South African consumer can't do that. And so what we're trying to do is bring a good quality garment to somebody who can't necessarily afford that at full price, so that those life cycles, exactly what you're saying, is extended. However, I do think there's definitely, there's sustainability fashion movements going on. You look at Johannesburg, like there's incredible brands coming out of Johannesburg that are locally manufactured and produced and all around geared around quality and sustainability and all of that, which I think is amazing. I think it's just the inaccessibility in terms of the price points is the hurdle there. And so if we can try and serve the broader market to do a similar thing, I think that that is kind of the end goal there.
What are the percentages we are working with in terms of discounts, Amber, from the regular original price compared to a Pharaoh price? What are the percentages we are looking at?
So we generally say we are always up to 60% off.
Wow.
Wow. So I'll give you an example. Like, what does a Zara puffer jacket go for now? Maybe
1,100.
Yeah.
Or 1,600. Yeah.
Like to the
you
round.
could wake me up. You could wake me up in my sleep and I'd know.
The price is right.
Awesome. Well, you should come to Pharaoh.
Absolutely.
So let's say 1,100. Our Zara puffer jackets are going for $399, $499.
Wow.
So it gives you a good example. Yeah, it's really, really massive discounts. Like these are prices you don't get elsewhere in the country. It's pretty crazy. Can imagine how dangerous it is for those of us who are in Pharaoh all the time. I feel like I spend most of my money in the store.
It's everyday Black Friday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're living your best life. Amber, just let us know where your stores are situated again and where we can find you on social media.
Yes. Awesome. So social media handle is @pharaoh.africa. Stores, there is Western Cape. The three are N1 City, Bayside, and Promenade Mall in Mitchell's Plain. And then in Gauteng, we've got Mamelodi Mall, the Glen in the south, and Fourways Mall. And we are about to launch in Springs Mall on the 29th of May.
Beautiful. Oh, okay. Amber, just whisper to us. As much as you say that you're trying to get the right garments to the right people, AI has told you, there must be a premium store within the Pharaoh group. Let us know which one that is. Where is that situated?
There actually isn't.
I knew you'd say that. I knew you'd say that, but there always is, Amber. Just wink. Which one?
Not with us, guys. Not with us.
Right.
No, honestly speaking, we. Obviously, there's different brands that are distributed in different stores depending on performance, right? And what the store reacts better to. Like, for example, our store in Mitchell's Plain is super like high-end brand orientated. So, the sports brands and things like that. So there'll be some product there. But generally speaking, we've got a good mix of brands and products across the board. I think, at the moment we haven't really got our flagship as of yet.
Okay. All right. We'll be in touch. Amber, thank you so much. This is such an innovative way of doing business, pushing fashion as well, sustainable, responsible, affordable. It can't lose. I don't see a formula like this doing badly. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, guys. This was such a lovely conversation. I feel like we could just chat for hours.
Yeah, absolutely. Come back again.
Thank you
when there are new innovations.
Yes, I'll be back. Right. But thank you. I appreciate the time.
That is Amber Penny, who is the co-founder as well as COO of Pharaoh. Are you going to be visiting any one of those?
I'm going to have to. I'm trying to find the closest one.
The Glen. Would that not be closest to you?
Yeah, the Glen would be the closest one to me. I'm in the East Rand.
Yeah.
So the Glen would be, because it's about 20 minutes away from me. Check it out. Wow, up to 60%. up to
anyone can do with a good sale. Okay,
these
a
are
good
not
deal.
these are not faulty items.
No, they aren't.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there are places like that resell faulty, like a tag is missing or there's a little.
And even calling it faulty is faulty, because oftentimes you can't even pick up.
You can't even pick it up.
Yeah.
Because some of these brands are so pedantic about even something as simple as the packaging. So if the packaging has a little chip on it, they're like, no, discard it. It's not going to go into the store. And then they resell it somewhere else. But they are selling full-on proper
I can't wait to see
luxury
your
items.
style change in the next couple of weeks, because you're shopping at Faro, stepping in here with a different walk. I can even see the walk might just change.
The walk will change, the headgear will change.
Please, for management's sake, can the headgear change?
A lot is going to change.
It's 4 minutes before we have to head on over to Tammy Ngubeni, who's going to be breaking it down in terms of all things having to do with business. Do you have a fun fact for me as we wrap up?
A fun fact?
A fun fact.
I always have a fun fact. Share yours, please, and then I'll get into mine.
So, in Japan, you asked me earlier on in the week if I would move to South Korea.
South Korea, because they were offering incentives to couples to start families, have babies, and so on and so forth.
And it was at a sum of some 650 or 690,000 in rand.
In dollars, it was about what, $30-something thousand?
Yeah. And I said it wasn't worth it for me.
Yeah,
what is worth it is me visiting Japan, which is a country, in fact, that I am keen on visiting anyway. Going to Japan because there you can rent a handsome man just to cry, and he wipes your tears, and
No, wait.
He's cuddling you as you're crying whatever it is.
You can rent a man.
You can rent a handsome. Tammy, I was just telling Tebogo now that I would absolutely take up Japan's offer to rent a handsome man in whose arms I can just cry, and he can wipe my tears.
Is this a real person, or is this
an absolute real man? He just happens to be handsome, and he'll cuddle and wipe your tears as you're crying.
You'd rent a man
in whose arms to cry in?
So
there's currently because let me give you context. Tebogo was saying, would I move to South Korea because there they pay you to marry a man and have babies because of the low birth rate. And I said, no, it's not worth it because it's like 650,000 rand. But I'd go definitely to Japan and cry
so
in
basically
some handsome
the price was
man's
higher,
arms.
you may just consider it. It's the 615,000 rand that you actually really have a problem
That's the big problem.
That is
really
actually
isn't.
a problem.
I would trust Tammy to just twist this.
But I'll tell you what, if you're really feeling down emotionally and you just want to be comforted
by a handsome man.
No. You just need comfort. And you just need to know where comfort comes from. You think you want comfort and you think it comes from a man. But it does not. You can make yourself a lovely cup
of tea.
Of really hot, tea's good, but here's what really works for me.
Yeah.
A really hot cup of milk, and I put some honey and cinnamon, right? And that okay, I mean, each to his own. But for me, you drink that, and it just physiologically, because a lot of these things are actually psychological. And in order to change the psychology, you change the physiology. And that then, it's chemical. It's all a chemical reaction. So you just find what is going to work for you.
And generally, it's a temporary thing, isn't it?
And it's very temporary.
Tammy, you're such a party, and I've never known you to be a party pooper. No one asked you to be cerebral about this.
I am not going to stand here and allow you to go further down the rabbit hole without my intervention. My conscience will not allow me.
Right. What we do want you to be is cerebral about business, Tammy.
Well, let's be cerebral because there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. And chief among those is the 2025 edition of the Africa CEO Forum. That's going to be taking place from the 12th to the 13th of May. And a large focus this year on the African Continental Free Trade Area, enhancing governance and refining public policies and accelerating the program. So we'll be speaking to one of the co-sponsors for the CEO Forum, and that's the IFC, the International Finance Corporation. Will be joined by the Principal Officer for South Africa, who's joining us today. And in our C-Suite feature, we'll be meeting Brian Klotze, who is the founder of Ngubeni Group, a company that focuses on engineering, construction, and turnkey solutions in Africa. That is just part of what we've got in store for you on Africa in Business coming up in just a moment. Thank you so much to the Upside team.
I can't wait to hear that CEO
Thank
conversation.
you.
If they will delve into diversity, inclusion,
you just keep listening as you drive home. It's gone exactly 4 p.m. Central African time as we bid farewell just for today to the Upside team. And let's just make sure that there are no Japanese gadgets standing by for Nompumelelo. It's got exactly 4 p.m. Let's head straight over to the news for the latest. And after that, also just a summary of the highlights from the sporting desk. It's 4 p.m.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Top stories: a Sawa call for collaboration on the African continent to fight corruption, and no Pope elected after a third round of voting. Good afternoon, I'm Jolani Tulongwebe. South Africa's Justice and Constitutional Development Minister Nompumelelo Ngubeni says collaboration on the continent in combating and fighting corruption is crucial. She delivered the closing speech on behalf of President Cyril Ramaphosa at the 15th Commonwealth Regional Conference for Heads of Anti-Corruption Agencies in Africa, taking place in Cape Town in the Western Cape Province. Ngubeni says cross-border corruption often leads to more serious crimes.
Global networks of corruption exploit vulnerabilities in the international banking systems to launder money that often ends up financing other crimes, including terrorism. Effective international collaboration requires that countries have strong anti-corruption policies frameworks and that they build institutions that have integrity and capabilities.
The 2025 Southern Africa State of Press Freedom Report says attacks on journalists have significantly declined across the region, except in countries such as Malawi, Eswatini, Lesotho and Mozambique, where serious concerns remain. The 100-page report was launched in Johannesburg, South Africa today in commemoration of World Press Freedom Day. Speaking at the event, chairperson of the Press Council of South Africa, Chamano Makadi, says more needs to be done to ensure a safe and inclusive media landscape for women across Southern Africa.
There's still quite a lot of challenges, especially with female journalists, something that we have seen particularly online where they continue to be bullied. South Africa has done, I would say, well, but there are pockets or areas where a lot still needs to be done. Respect for media practitioners, respect for journalists. It's quite important that we do that in respect of our Constitution, Section 16 of the Constitution.
The UN's World Food Programme and Agency for Children, UNICEF, say they expect nutrition supplies for Upper Nile State in South Sudan, which has some of the highest rates of malnutrition in the country, to run out by the end of May. Along the Nile River in South Sudan has prevented humanitarian aid from reaching more than 60,000 malnourished children in the northeast of the country for almost a month. The Nile is a crucial transport artery in South Sudan because the impoverished country has few paved roads and a lot of challenging terrain, particularly during the rainy season when many roads become impassable. The agencies did not say which fighting had disrupted the route of their aid barges, but government forces have been fighting an ethnic Nuer militia known as the White Army in areas near the Nile since March. The San and Khoi community in the Northern Cape province of South Africa say the process of reburial of the remains of 64 Khoi and San people later this year will help them find closure. Some of these remains were buried in the Northern Cape, while some were buried in Cape Town in the Western Cape. The project leader, James Mapanga, says others are at the Humanitarian Museum in Glasgow in Scotland. Most of the remains were illegally exhumed over a century ago to be studied, among others, by universities. Mapanga says affected communities deserve closure.
More than 100 years ago, these people were illegally exhumed in the area from the Richtersveld up throughout the Northern Cape, up through Hopetown area. In the Galari, 2 were exhumed in Witbank 3, but most of the 58 was in the Namakwa area, south of Steinkopf. And the purpose of this reburial process is to bring healing and to reconcile and put our forefathers' bones under the ground.
No pope has been elected after the third ballot of the conclave to elect the 267th pope. Black smoke poured out of the chimney of the Sistine Chapel just before noon, signalling that the cardinals assembled to pick a new pope had still not reached a decision on a second day of voting. The Vatican News reports that about 15,000 people gathered in the square continue to look up at the chimney in anticipation. Voting is expected to resume any time from now and may continue into the evening. Recapping the top story this hour, South Africa's Justice and Constitutional Development Minister Nompumelelo Ngubeni says collaboration on the continent in combating and fighting corruption is crucial. She delivered the closing speech on behalf